What's up guys, welcome to this review of Blair Witch, the video game. Just came out this past week on Game Pass if you got Xbox. I think it might also be on PC. And in this it's loosely inspired by the film franchise of the same name. You play a character called Ellis who, to say much more about his character is going into spoilers. The whole point of this game is to try and delve into him and figure out who he is, what his backstory is, why he's in the woods. I can say that you're initially heading to the woods in search of a missing child, and you're there with your trusty companion, your dog called Bullet. And in typical Blair Witch fashion, if you've seen the film franchise, you'll know that some weird things will start to happen. So what did I think of this game? On the whole, I thought it was good, just good. I don't think it's great by any means, but it's about 5 hours long. The primary thing that you're doing, it's kind of like a walking simulator. You're traveling through the woods, you will get lost. The woods are dense, they're thick. There's lots of different paths and hidden passages you can go down. You have a flashlight and you've got a backpack full of stuff. You can pick up like a walkie-talkie and a phone. One of the cool things on the phone is you can actually scroll through it, phone people, and you can play games like Old Snake, which is pretty cool. And your flashlight is pretty lousy when it comes to its actual use in darkness, so that's disappointing. But you also pick up a video camera which you can use to, well, I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but you can use it as night vision to help you guide your way through. But for the most part, this is a bit of a walking simulator. You do pick up collectibles here and there, like Polaroid photographs and documents, which will help flesh out the story. There are other things like the Blair Witch symbol in like stick form and other lots of little hidden things that you can find if you can go out there and find them. But again, it's pretty dense. It's going to be tough to get there because the game is scary as well. You're going to need some encouragement to go out and look around every nook and cranny. So to talk about the scariness of the game, I would say the first half of the game is much more about setting up an atmosphere. It's tense and it's nerve-wracking. It's very moody, and then the weird things start to happen and you start to get much more into like jump scare territory. Without going into spoilers, towards the end of the game it really relies on the jump scares a bit and things get weirder and weirder, and I think it kind of loses its way towards the end in terms of its use of horror. But my playthrough was about 5 hours long. It's not a long game by any means. Some people might go longer, especially if you're looking for all of the collectibles. So the game never really outstays its welcome. I just think there are a couple of sections that could have been trimmed down. And again, some of that stuff might have just been me trying to figure out where it was meant to go, and of course getting lost in the woods and so on. So it could be shorter than that as well, depending on how you play it. Speaking of the ending, there are multiple endings in this game. I found the ending to be pretty disappointing, but depending on how you play this game, some of the decisions you make throughout the game, you could totally end up with something different, I think. I don't know how diverse the endings are. I don't know how many endings there are. So you're not just going through the woods, you're not just picking up items and looking at them and so on. There is a puzzle mechanic in there with the video camera, like I mentioned earlier. One of the things you'll do is you'll find a videotape which you can then look through, scrub through it, fast forward and rewind. So for example, you might find a videotape with, well actually for example, you might find a hut, the door's locked. You then pick up a videotape, put that in the camera, zoom through the image, and someone in the videotape might all of a sudden open that hut's door. You then lower the camera and voila, the hut's open. So there's a lot of stuff like that. It is a bit on the simplistic side, it is a little on the obvious side as well. Usually if there's a puzzle like this, the answer's right around the corner kind of thing. But it works pretty well, it adds some variety. There's also kind of a combat mechanic in there. If you've played Alan Wake, you'll know that it's similar to that with the flashlight. There are some things in the woods which you can fight off with the light on your flashlight. A lot of it's more like just little glimpses in there. You rarely ever get a big long look at whatever it is. But as soon as you shine the light on there, it does some damage and it scatters off somewhere else. Then you've got to keep doing that until it's dead or gone or whatever. And again, it adds some variety. I could have done with a little less of that. There is a point in the game where you seem to constantly get bombarded by them a little too much, but it's in there, it adds variety, it makes it a bit more than just a walking simulator horror experience. But the big highlight of this game is Bullet, the dog, and the way that you interact with that dog. So what you can do is you can send him off to seek items in the environment. If you can get a scent and find collectibles for you, You can also tell him off if he's done something wrong. You can tell him to stay, you can tell him to be close to you, and most importantly, you can tell him you can pet him. So yeah, and the way in which you treat the dog will affect the ending of the game. How much, I don't know exactly. There are other little decisions throughout the game, which I'm not going to get into, where that also impacts the ending. But the game does a brilliant job of making Bullet very likable, and you really start to feel for this dog who's running around with you, because he is essentially the only constant companion you have in the game. There are other characters here and there, but he's the only one that's actually with you. But then again, he is a dog, so he's incredibly likable anyway. But to get into the more technical stuff, there are some little hitches here and there. The game is pretty good looking overall. The character models are great. Bullet looks great. But there are some issues of like frame rate drops, texture popping here and there. There are moments where I was like walking through the woods where I could see a hill in the distance, and all of a sudden I'd get close and the hill just vanishes right in front of my eyes. I don't know if that was an intentional thing that the game wants me to be freaked out about, or if it was a technical thing where the game's trying to direct me into the right way or whatever, but it was a bit jarring and odd, and I'm going to call it as say it's not meant to be that way. And just to touch on the woods, like I said, they are pretty dense, which that mixed in with the fact that the game is tense and atmospheric and a little on the spooky side, it kind of discourages exploration. So yeah, not sure how I feel about that, especially when there is so much to explore and it's very easy to get lost, just like in the films. So yeah, it all works well in trying to mimic the experience of being in the films, but at the cost of it being a little, it makes the game a bit more frustrating, let's say. One of the things that you'll notice when you load up the game is that it's got binaural audio. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So you put in your headphones, and if you've got 3D directional binaural headphones, if you hear a noise to your left, hey, you look left, it's there. So you'll see it coming through various areas. It works really well for Bullet. If, for example, you get lost from Bullet, he'll bark, and you'll hear him on this side, so you know it'll go in that direction. There's also like an on-screen indicator to help you there as well. And for like voices and sounds like that, it works really well. But then at the same time, you've got things like the score and just general other sounds going on, which seem to be just in your face all the time. So it only seems to work for some sounds, which was a little on the disappointing side. In comparison to Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, this is a little bit of a step down, but it's still used pretty well. And I think you could totally play the game without using it as well. And just before I finish this up, there is a moment towards the end of the game which I found heartbreaking. The story, I think, is actually really interesting because it is much more of a diving deep into the character of who you're playing rather than an actual overarching story that's going on. And there is a heartbreaking moment in this game which almost made me want to stop playing and put the controller down and just never return to it, but I powered through and played it till the end. Kind of wishing I didn't, because like I said, I thought the ending was a little on the disappointing side. So that's Blair Witch in a nutshell. I think it's good. It's a scary game, it's tense, it does a good job of setting mood and atmosphere. There are some jump scares, it increasingly gets weirder and weirder. This is not going to be a game for everyone though. I do think the story is a little bit hit and miss. You have to kind of relate to the character that you're playing as. The whole point of the story is to find out who this character is, what his backstory is, what he's been up to. And I do think the ending is a little bit on the drawn out side. It could have been a little trimmed down and shortened a bit. But ultimately, a good game. If you've got Game Pass, I do recommend it. 5 hours long, that's how long it took me roughly, and I'm probably being a little generous there. The gameplay is on the simple side, but it is fun, it is intuitive, and there is some variety in there. So if you've liked this review, I'm Grant Burton. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton. You can also subscribe to my channel. That's the most important thing. The more subscribers I get, the more content I'll be able to make, the more my channel will be able to grow. If you like this video, or if you haven't liked this video even, send it across social media, share this, because there might be other people out there who will like it. And until next time, that's kind of all I got to say. Leave comments and feedbacks down below. Let me know what you thought of Blair Witch, the video game. If you've got any questions about it, let me know them, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But until then, thanks for watching.